On a rain-soaked Tuesday morning in Portland's Hawthorne district, Brandon Williams stood in front of the bathroom mirror, practicing words he couldn't seem to get right. Tomorrow was Tyler's 7th birthday. Next week was the court hearing that would determine whether the boy he'd loved for 18 months would officially become his son. And today, he had exactly $14.37 to make both dreams come true. The irony wasn't lost on him. At 29, Brandon had once been Nike's youngest senior software engineer, designing algorithms that helped athletes achieve their dreams. Now he was unemployed, officially terminated for what HR diplomatically called cultural fit issues. The real reason sat quieter, buried in whispered comments about his lifestyle choices and concerns about his ability to represent company values. Tyler knocked softly on the door, his small voice carrying that particular brand of worry only children who've learned to read adult stress can master. "Dad, are you okay in there?" Brandon opened the door to find Tyler holding his worn stuffed elephant, the one he'd clutched during those first terrifying nights in foster care before Brandon became his placement. The boy's dark eyes, inherited from birth parents who'd vanished when their son's awkward questions about having two dads at school became too complicated to navigate, searched Brandon's face with the intensity of someone who'd learned early that adults could disappear without warning. "I'm fine, buddy," Brandon managed, kneeling to Tyler's eye level. "Just thinking about your birthday tomorrow." Tyler's face lit up with the resilience that never failed to break and heal Brandon's heart simultaneously. "Can we go look at cakes today, even if we can't buy one yet?" The question hit like a physical weight. Tyler had never asked for much, had learned in his short life that wanting things too loudly often led to disappointment. But this small request, spoken with such careful hope, represented everything Brandon feared he couldn't provide. The rain outside painted silver streaks down their apartment windows, each droplet reflecting the uncertainty that had settled into their lives since Brandon's termination. He'd been surviving on unemployment benefits and freelance work that barely covered rent, let alone birthday celebrations or legal fees for the adoption proceeding. But Tyler was waiting, elephant tucked under his arm, trust radiating from every inch of his small frame. Brandon had promised him a family, had spent months filling out paperwork and attending court dates and social worker visits, all building toward next week's final hearing. He couldn't let a cake defeat him now. Sweet Dreams Bakery sat on Southeast Hawthorne like a golden lighthouse, its windows glowing against the gray morning. Inside, the scent of fresh bread and vanilla frosting created an atmosphere of warmth that made Brandon's chest tighten with longing and inadequacy. Tyler pressed his face against the display case, breath fogging the glass as he studied each cake with the serious concentration of an art critic. The prices made Brandon's stomach clench. $60 for a custom birthday cake, $45 for the smaller options. Even the day-old section offered nothing under $20. He felt the familiar burn of shame creeping up his neck, the same feeling that had followed him through childhood foster homes where asking for anything extra marked you as ungrateful. Tyler pointed to a strawberry cake decorated with rainbow sprinkles, his voice dropping to the whisper he used when he really wanted something but was afraid to hope. "That one's really pretty, Dad." Brandon's heart shattered and reformed in the space of a breath. Tomorrow, his son would turn 7 in a world that had already taught him to want quietly, to dream carefully, to love people who might leave. If you believe every child deserves to feel celebrated, that love makes a family regardless of its shape. Please take a moment to like and subscribe to Heart Stories. Your support helps us share stories that remind us what truly matters. Because sometimes the most powerful transformations begin with the smallest acts of courage. And today, Brandon was about to discover that asking for help isn't surrender. It's the first step toward building the community every family needs to thrive. Inside Sweet Dreams Bakery, the morning rush created a symphony of espresso machines and casual conversation, but Brandon felt the weight of every glance that lingered too long on his worn jacket and Tyler's carefully mended jeans. He approached the counter where Sarah, a woman in her 30s with kind eyes and flour-dusted apron, offered a genuine smile that made his shoulders relax slightly. "Hi there, what can I help you with today?" Sarah's voice carried the practiced warmth of someone who genuinely enjoyed her work. But Brandon caught the subtle way her expression shifted when he cleared his throat nervously. I was wondering if you might have any day-old items, or maybe something that's been marked down. It's for his birthday tomorrow, and I'm between jobs right now. The words tasted like copper pennies in his mouth, each syllable a small surrender to a reality he'd spent months trying to navigate with dignity intact. Tyler stood beside him, still clutching his elephant, unaware that his mere presence was being cataloged and judged by strangers who knew nothing about the journey that had brought them here. From a corner table, a woman in expensive activewear leaned toward her companion, her voice carrying just enough to be heard. Some people shouldn't have children if they can't provide for them properly. It's really not fair to the kids. Is it? Her friend nodded, both women's eyes fixed on Tyler with the particular brand of pity that cuts deeper than outright hostility. Brandon's face burned, but Tyler's small hand slipped into his. Offering comfort, the boy had learned to give long before he should have needed to understand adult shame. Sarah caught the exchange, her jaw tightening almost imperceptibly as she glanced toward the corner table. Then back to Brandon with something fierce flickering behind her professional demeanor. Mike, the teenage employee restocking pastries nearby, paused in his work, clearly uncomfortable but uncertain how to navigate the tension crackling through the air. The bakery's policy about discounted items was strict, designed to prevent abuse. But watching a father struggle to afford his son's birthday cake felt like exactly the kind of situation policies weren't meant to handle. Near the window, Marcus Chen sat with his laptop open, supposedly reviewing quarterly reports for his tech company, but his attention had shifted entirely to the scene unfolding at the counter. At 45, Marcus had built an empire from nothing. His parents' sacrifice and his own relentless work ethic transforming childhood poverty into financial success that sometimes felt hollow in moments like these. 18 months ago, David would have been sitting across from him, probably already halfway to the counter to help. His natural empathy always quicker than Marcus's more calculated responses to human suffering. David had possessed an intuitive understanding of pain that came from growing up gay in rural Oregon, from watching his own father work 3 jobs to keep food on the table. They talked about fostering kids who aged out of the system, about providing the stability David had craved as a teenager, sleeping on friends' couches when home became too dangerous. Those conversations felt like a lifetime ago, buried beneath the weight of grief that had turned Marcus's world into a series of motions performed without genuine feeling. Tyler tugged on Brandon's sleeve, his voice carrying the careful diplomacy of a child who'd learned to manage adult emotions. Dad, it's okay if we can't get a cake today. We could make cookies instead, like we did for Christmas. The offer nearly destroyed Brandon's composure, this small person trying to comfort him while surrounded by strangers who questioned his worth as a parent. Marcus closed his laptop with decisive finality, the sound cutting through the bakery's ambient noise like a declaration. He'd spent 18 months existing in a bubble of grief and guilt, insulated by wealth that couldn't purchase the one thing he'd lost. But something about Tyler's resigned acceptance, about Brandon's quiet dignity in the face of judgment, cracked through the emotional numbness that had defined his days since David's death. The hate crime that took David had been swift and brutal. 3 men who decided that love between 2 Asian men somehow threatened their vision of America. Marcus had survived because he'd been working late again, because success demanded constant sacrifice, because he'd prioritized quarterly earnings over dinner with the man who made his life meaningful. Now, watching another gay man struggle to provide for his child while strangers offered commentary on his fitness as a parent, Marcus felt David's presence like a whisper against his conscience. This was exactly the kind of moment David would have transformed through simple human decency, the kind of intervention that didn't require grand gestures, just recognition that everyone deserved dignity regardless of their bank account balance. Life has a way of placing us exactly where we need to be, even when we can't see the purpose yet. Sometimes our greatest growth comes not from our own struggles, but from recognizing ourselves in someone else's courage to keep trying despite the odds. Marcus stood slowly, his movements deliberate as muscle memory from countless boardroom presentations kicked in, but this time the stakes felt infinitely more personal. He approached the counter with the quiet confidence that had served him through decades of business negotiations, though his heart rate suggested this conversation mattered more than any merger or acquisition he'd ever orchestrated. "Excuse me," he said, his voice carrying just enough authority to draw Sarah's attention without overwhelming the moment. "I'd like to order a birthday cake for this young man, if that's all right with his father." Marcus looked directly at Brandon, offering respect rather than assumption, acknowledging that dignity mattered more than financial capability. Brandon's expression shifted through confusion, suspicion, and something that might have been hope before settling on cautious gratitude. Tyler looked up at Marcus with the open curiosity of childhood, taking in this stranger who'd appeared like an answer to a prayer neither of them had dared voice aloud in a room full of judgment. "What kind of cake would you like for your birthday?" Marcus asked Tyler directly, crouching down to the boy's eye level in a gesture that felt natural despite the years since he'd interacted with children. Tyler's eyes widened as he pointed toward the strawberry creation that had captured his attention earlier, his voice barely above a whisper when he answered, "That one with the rainbow sprinkles. Please, but Dad says we should ask how much things cost first." The child's careful politeness broke something loose in Marcus's chest, a recognition of premature wisdom that reminded him of his own childhood, when grocery store math determined whether they ate dinner or paid the electric bill. Sarah moved with renewed purpose, boxing the cake Tyler had chosen along with an assortment of sandwiches and fresh fruit that would ensure their celebration extended beyond sugar and frosting. Her earlier hesitation had transformed into active participation, the bakery's policy suddenly feeling less important than the human story unfolding in front of her. Marcus handed his credit card to Sarah, but his attention remained focused on Brandon, who stood frozen in an internal battle between pride and necessity that Marcus recognized with painful clarity. 25 years ago, Marcus had been the scholarship kid wearing second-hand clothes to computer science classes, accepting meal vouchers from professors who pretended they'd ordered too much lunch, rather than acknowledging his hunger directly. David had understood that particular type of survival, had shared stories of his own mother's quiet heroism and stretching minimum wage paychecks to cover school supplies and medical bills while maintaining the fiction that everything was fine. They'd planned to foster teenagers aging out of the system, kids who understood that family wasn't always biological but could be chosen, built through intention and sustained through commitment. The corner table's commentary had shifted to whispered speculation about Marcus's motives, their voices carrying assumptions about wealth and charity that missed the deeper truth of recognition between people who traveled similar roads despite different destinations. Brandon caught fragments of their conversation, but Tyler's excitement about his cake created a protective bubble around their small celebration. Marcus pulled out a business card, writing his personal number on the back before handing it to Brandon. "I run a tech consulting firm, and we're always looking for skilled engineers. No strings attached to this," he said, gesturing toward the cake. "But if you're interested in freelance work that might lead to something more permanent, give me a call next week." The offer carried no condescension, no implied debt, just recognition of talent that didn't disappear because circumstances had shifted. Brandon accepted the card with hands that trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the unfamiliar experience of being seen as more than his current situation suggested. Tyler bounced slightly on his toes, his joy infectious enough to draw smiles from other customers who'd been watching the interaction unfold. Even the women at the corner table seemed to soften, their earlier judgment replaced by something that might have been recognition of their own assumptions. Sarah handed over the carefully packaged order, her smile genuine as she told Tyler that rainbow sprinkles were her favorite too, that she hoped his birthday would be everything 7-year-olds dreamed about and more. The teenager, Mike, had stopped pretending to work entirely, watching with the fascination of someone witnessing kindness that wasn't performed for cameras or social media recognition. Marcus felt something shift inside his chest, a loosening of the grief that had held him captive for 18 months. This wasn't about replacing David or moving on from loss, but about honoring the man who'd believed that love multiplied when shared, rather than diminished when given away. As they prepared to leave, Tyler looked up at Marcus with the serious expression children wear when they're about to share something important. "Thank you for helping make my birthday special. My dad works really hard, but sometimes grown-up things are expensive." Marcus knelt down again, meeting Tyler's eyes with equal seriousness. "Your dad is lucky to have someone who understands that. Kiddo, happy early birthday." The intersection of loss and hope creates space for unexpected connections, teaching us that healing often comes not from forgetting our pain, but from using it to recognize when others need the same kindness we once craved but couldn't find. Outside Sweet Dreams Bakery, the Portland rain had softened to a gentle mist that turned the morning light silver and forgiving. Brandon and Tyler walked slowly toward their bus stop, the weight of the cake box in Brandon's hands feeling both precious and surreal, like evidence of a kindness he wasn't sure he deserved but couldn't bring himself to question. Tyler chattered excitedly about his birthday plans, his earlier resignation replaced by the uncomplicated joy of a child whose world had suddenly expanded to include rainbow sprinkles and unexpected allies. "Dad, do you think we should save some cake for Marcus? He seemed nice, and maybe he doesn't have anyone to eat birthday cake with." The question stopped Brandon mid-step, struck by his son's intuitive understanding of loneliness disguised as generosity. Tyler had learned to read adults with the precision of someone whose survival had once depended on anticipating emotional weather patterns. But instead of becoming cynical, he developed an almost supernatural capacity for empathy. Back inside the bakery, Marcus lingered at his table, ostensibly returning to his quarterly reports but actually processing an emotional shift he hadn't experienced since David's death. The simple act of helping Tyler and Brandon had created a crack in the wall of numbness he'd built around his heart, letting in both pain and possibility in equal measure. Sarah approached with a fresh cup of coffee, her expression thoughtful as she set it down without being asked. "That was a beautiful thing you just did," she said quietly. "We see a lot of families struggling, especially single parents. Company policy doesn't always account for the human side of things, but maybe it should." Her words carried weight beyond casual conversation, the recognition of someone reassessing systems she'd previously accepted without question. The interaction with Brandon and Tyler had illuminated gaps between intention and practice, between corporate efficiency and community care, between the policies that protect profits and the values that protect people. Marcus looked up from his laptop, noting the genuine concern in Sarah's voice. "I was wondering if Sweet Dreams might be interested in partnering with local organizations that support LGBTQ families. Nothing complicated, just maybe a program where people can purchase gift cards for families in need, or sponsor birthday celebrations for kids in foster care." The suggestion emerged from months of unexpressed grief channeled into purposeful action. David's dreams of creating safety nets for vulnerable kids finally finding the expression through Marcus's resources and business connections. Sarah's eyes brightened with recognition of possibility, the kind of program that could transform policy from reactive to proactive, from defensive to supportive. Within hours, word had spread through the neighborhood's informal network of parents, baristas, and community organizers who understood that small gestures often created larger transformations. The elderly woman who ran the used bookstore next door stopped by to ask about contributing to the hypothetical program Sarah and Marcus had begun sketching on napkins. Mike, the teenage employee, shared the story with his friends at Roosevelt High School, where Tyler would eventually attend if the adoption proceeded successfully. The narrative took on life beyond its original moment, becoming part of the neighborhood's evolving identity as a place where people looked out for each other across differences of age, orientation, and economic status. Brandon spent the afternoon researching Marcus's company, discovering not just financial success, but a reputation for ethical business practices and community investment that suggested their encounter hadn't been random charity, but genuine recognition of shared values. The business card in his pocket carried possibility beyond immediate employment, representing a network of support he'd never allowed himself to imagine. Tyler helped prepare for his birthday celebration by cleaning their small apartment and setting the table with their mismatched dishes, treating the upcoming meal like a formal dinner party worthy of their finest efforts. His excitement was infectious, transforming their cramped space into something that felt abundant rather than lacking, chosen rather than settled for. That evening, as they shared Chinese takeout paid for with the money Brandon had originally budgeted for cake ingredients, Tyler asked the question that had been building throughout the day. "Dad, why did Marcus help us?" Brandon considered several responses before settling on truth calibrated for 7-year-old understanding. Sometimes people help because they remember when they needed help too. And sometimes they help because someone they loved would have wanted them to. Tyler nodded with the seriousness of someone processing information that would shape his understanding of how communities function at their best. So helping people is like sharing love with someone who isn't here anymore. Brandon's throat tightened at his son's intuitive grasp of concepts most adults struggled to articulate. Exactly, buddy. Exactly. The transformative power of community emerges when individual acts of kindness connect people across their differences, creating networks of support that extend far beyond single moments of need, proving that belonging isn't something we earn, but something we create together through small, daily choices to show up for each other. 2 weeks later, the Multnomah County Courthouse buzzed with the routine energy of legal proceedings that would change lives with the weight of a gavel strike. Brandon sat in the hallway outside family court, his hand resting protectively on Tyler's shoulder as they waited for their names to be called. 18 months of documentation and home visits condensed into a final hearing that would determine their future as a legal family. Tyler wore his best button-down shirt, the one they'd found at Goodwill and altered to fit his small frame. His hair combed with the careful precision of someone who understood that appearances mattered to adults making important decisions. His usual elephant sat quietly in his lap, a comfort object he'd been reluctant to leave at home, despite Brandon's gentle suggestion that 7-year-olds might not need stuffed animals in court. Marcus arrived precisely at 9:30, wearing a charcoal suit that spoke to his professional success without overwhelming the space with unnecessary formality. He carried a folder containing character references from business associates and community members who'd heard Tyler's story through the informal networks that connect people across Portland's progressive neighborhoods. The night before, Marcus had sat in his home office writing a letter that began with David's name and ended with Tyler's future, connecting his partner's interrupted dream to this child's need for permanency and protection. The words had flowed like prayer, like promises made to the dead and kept through service to the living, like love transformed into action across the bridge of shared understanding. Sarah had also come, bringing with her a petition signed by 63 customers and community members who'd learned about Tyler's adoption through the word-of-mouth networks that sustain neighborhoods built on values rather than convenience. Her presence represented more than individual support, embodying the collective decision of a community to show up for families that might otherwise navigate the system's complexities alone. Judge Patricia Hernandez reviewed the case file with a thoroughness that had earned her reputation as both fair and protective of children's interests. Her questions directed toward understanding the stability and love that defined Brandon and Tyler's relationship, rather than the economic anxieties that had consumed Brandon's worry for months. Tyler answered the judge's gentle questions with the articulate honesty that had always been his superpower, explaining that Brandon taught him to cook and helped with homework and read stories at bedtime, but most importantly, made him feel safe in a way he couldn't remember feeling before they became a family. When asked about his understanding of adoption, Tyler's response carried wisdom that silenced the courtroom. "I know it means Brandon will be my dad forever, not just until someone decides I should live somewhere else. And I know it means I get to love him without being scared he'll send me back if I make mistakes or ask for things that cost money." The judge's expression softened at Tyler's matter-of-fact explanation of permanency, recognizing in his words the voice of a child who'd learned too early that love could be conditional, that safety could be temporary, that belonging required constant negotiation rather than simple acceptance. Marcus watched from the gallery as the judge signed the final paperwork, officially transforming Brandon Williams from foster parent to legal father, Tyler Rodriguez from ward of the state to beloved son. The moment carried weight beyond legal documentation, representing victory over systems designed to question unconventional families, triumph of love over prejudice, chosen family over biological assumption. Outside the courthouse, Tyler threw his arms around Brandon's waist with the uninhibited joy of someone whose world had just expanded to include forever, his elephant forgotten in the grass as he spun in circles under the autumn sun. Marcus captured the moment on his phone, already planning to frame it for the memorial garden he'd been designing in David's honor. 3 months later, the David Chen Memorial Fund held its inaugural celebration at Sweet Dreams Bakery, which had transformed its back room into headquarters for supporting LGBTQ families navigating adoption, foster care, and custody challenges. The program that had begun as napkin sketches had evolved into partnership between Marcus's foundation, local family service organizations, and businesses committed to creating practical support networks. Sarah had been promoted to regional manager, partly for her initiative in developing community partnership programs that other bakery locations were beginning to implement across the Pacific Northwest. Her story became case study in how individual moments of choosing humanity over policy could transform entire organizational cultures from the ground up. Tyler celebrated his 80th birthday with a party that filled the bakery's main room with children from his school, foster kids from his former placement, and adults who'd become his chosen extended family through the networks that connect people committed to showing up for each other across difference and distance. Brandon had accepted a senior engineer position with Marcus's company, his skills finally recognized by leadership that valued talent regardless of the personal circumstances that had created temporary setbacks in his career trajectory. His work developing accessibility software honored both his technical expertise and his lived understanding of navigation systems that didn't always accommodate diverse family structures. Marcus spoke at the memorial celebration not about loss, but about legacy, about David's belief that love multiplied when shared rather than diminished when given away, about communities built through small daily choices to recognize dignity in every person, regardless of their bank account balance or family configuration. The bakery's Pay It Forward program had funded over 40 birthday celebrations for children in foster care, created scholarship fund for teenagers aging out of the system, and established Resource Center where families could access everything from legal referrals to grocery gift cards without shame or surveillance. That evening, as Tyler helped clean up after the celebration, he asked the question that had been building since his adoption became final. "Dad, do you think we helped Marcus feel better about missing David Brandon?" Paused in stacking chairs, struck again by his son's intuitive understanding of emotional complexity that adults often missed. "I think we helped him remember that love doesn't end when people die. It just finds new ways to grow. As families evolve beyond traditional definitions, communities have the power to create support systems that honor every person's need for belonging, safety, and celebration, proving that the strongest foundations aren't built on blood relation, but on daily choices to show up for each other with consistency, respect, and unconditional love." Have you ever experienced the transformative power of chosen family or witnessed a community come together to support someone who needed it most? Share your story in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to Heart Stories for more true tales of resilience, community, and the everyday heroes who remind us that kindness is never wasted, and love always finds a way to multiply when shared with open hearts.